Hello, hello, hello. Welcome into another edition of Strategies for Living here on 1017 FM and 710 KEEL. I'm marriage and family therapist David McMillan. And by that tune, you know that she has just entered our airwaves.
What are you guys talking about?
Welcome, PLPC Carla McCormick. Good job.
I was itching so bad to hit that button.
I was busy saving the world.
He did it. Rapid Ruben Wright. Good job, guy. Way to start the
Good
week.
evening, everybody.
How you doing, Carla?
I'm doing great. Sorry I'm late.
No, that's all right. How you doing, Ruben?
Doing good.
Yeah.
I'm always glad when you're late.
I know you like to play that crazy music.
He loves it. He loves it, and I love it too. So you don't even know what we're going to talk about tonight.
We're going to talk the...
You see, you hear?
Yeah.
You hear?
She doesn't know.
No, she has no idea.
clue.
Well, I'll give you a clue.
Okay.
Last week I said I was marriage and family therapist David McMillan. We talked about what did we talk about last week?
We talked about the stages of
we
marriage.
talked about the 7 marriages within your marriage, and then we also talked about marriage myths. So I thought we would. We've got a guest tomorrow evening, so I thought we'd kind of wrap up a few days on marriage and extend that. And I talk about creating. I talk about the difference between creating and reacting. We'll talk about that. So I talk about creating me, creating we, and creating us.
Ooh, well,
Yeah.
now what's the difference between we and us?
Creating me, is
Right.
making sure that I'm on solid ground. Creating we is a me and you. We're joining together. We're a couple.
Okay.
And creating us is family. We're bringing
Oh,
more
the
in.
other
So
people.
yeah, creating me, creating we, and creating us.
Ooh, sounds like a book.
Yeah, maybe 3 of them.
Oh,
I'm working on
a
that.
trilogy.
I'm working on that. Folks, thank you for tuning in to Strategies for a Living. We are presented by CADA, the Council on Alcoholism and Drug Abuse of Northwest Louisiana. I've been helping individuals and families now for over 60 years. We're also brought to you by Jerry Anderson State Farm Insurance, by Learning RX, by Highland Place Rehab and Nursing Center, by Jacob's Well, Inspirational Books and Gifts, and by Resilient House. We will be back to talk about creating marriage in a reactive world. If we're talking addiction, And we're back. Welcome in. Welcome into Strategies for Living here on 101.7 FM. 710 KEEL, marriage and family therapist David McMillan, PLPC, Carla McCormick. So I love this quote from Deepak Chopra, right? The most creative act that you will ever undertake is the act of creating yourself.
And also the most difficult.
Yes, yes. And you know, we create I create me. If we're going to create marriage, we create us, and we're going to be creating us in a largely reactive world. When we have kids, when we bring a family into it, with whether we have kids biologically, we adopt, however we form family and create us, we're doing that in a reactive world. So I've been playing, Carla, with, and I've talked to you about this before, something that I call 5C therapy.
Yeah.
So creative, conscious, chosen cognitions and cleaning. I don't know what I got off on C's.
That's okay. They work.
But you know, the basis of this is, if you can imagine, and again, I got kind of cheesy with this, looking at creative and reactive, and understanding and noticing that they're the same word. You know, you've got to see it right. There's the cheesy part. Take the C and move in creative, if you can imagine that word in front of you here on the radio, and take the C and move it over 3 letters. Creative becomes reactive. Or move the C back and it becomes creative. You know, take reactive and move it back, it becomes creative. So reactive and creative are the same word. You just have to see it right.
Well, and even those people who think they are not creating, you're creating whether you mean to be or not, and I think that's what you mean by reactive.
Yeah,
either you're just reacting to the things and creating your world in a reactive manner, or you're consciously creating what you want yourself and your world to look like.
Yeah,
right.
And so very quickly, before we talk about creating us, let's talk about creating me, because if we think about spelling out that word creative, and spelling out the word reactive, I mean, it kind of gives us a clue. The C in creative, we're doing creative choice making. We are constantly cleaning. It's creative, conscious choice versus, on the other end of it, rote or reactive responses. So that would be I'm spelling out creative, I'm spelling out reactive down both ends. So the spelling down the creative, I'm going for realistic expectations versus I'm expecting magic to happen.
Right.
I'm engaging energy versus being all over the place. I understand that I'm an energy being, and I'm engaging energy versus if I don't understand I'm an energy being, I'm likely to be all over the place. I'm autonomous. I'm accepting responsibility. I'm delaying gratification. I'm being honest with myself and attempting to live balanced versus being critical and contemptuous, blaming, and just complaining all the time. I'm thinking safety and trust. I'm thought conscious and I'm choosing versus being thought oblivious and unfocused. Basically living in fear if I'm on that end of the spectrum. I'm into and I choose intimate, passionate living as opposed to intimidated and closed off living. Victims do not exist in the creative, in my conceptualization of being creative. And I realize that this is controversial, but on the other end of that, I have a victim mentality. And again, I don't mean that bad things don't happen to us in the world, but we have a choice of what we do with that. Again, many of us have trauma in our backgrounds, but how do we process it? How do we continue to live a trauma that's happened to us 5 years ago, 10 years ago,
And letting that person hurt you over again.
Whether that's a divorce, whatever that is, it could be anything, because there's a lot of trauma in the world. So I'm not saying that bad things don't happen to people. Definitely they do. We live in the world, and the world's made up of everything from Mother Teresa to Jeffrey Dahmer. You know, if I stand too close to Jeffrey Dahmer, I'm probably gonna lose something.
With a nice Chianti and fava beans.
Exactly. And then finally, emotional control, spelling out creative on one end versus emotional lability. So to change it, you have to see it correctly. You have to consciously, creatively choose your cognitions. And you've got to be willing to constantly clean. Another word for that would be forgiveness. Yeah, so
I like that. I like that you included forgiveness. So basically, what I heard there is that we have a choice to be engaged and to participate in who we choose to be and who we become, or we just kind of float around and let the wind blow us wherever we blow, and whatever happens, happens.
And I think that's a very easy thing to do today, because I think if you step back and look at the world we live in a very reactive world. We live in a very victim-oriented world. We're always tend to be looking for, we tend to either put on the mantle of victim or rescuer. And more often than not, if I have this victim mentality, I'm looking to you or someone out there to rescue me, whoever that might be.
Well, and I think that it becomes a habit. I mean, I was talking to a client today, and she was dating Mr. Wrong for the 10th time, and she said, it's like I have a list of things that are bad that if they qualify for all those lists, then I'm attracted to them.
Yeah.
And and so she knows that on a cognitive level, but
step in the right direction then.
Well, yeah, and and realizing that he's gonna be Mr. Wrong, or he is Mr. Wrong. But the fact that she keeps picking the same guy over and over is a habit.
Yeah.
And so recognize it, and then
once you're conscious of it, then you can. It may be difficult. It may be difficult because habits sometimes can be very difficult to break, but they can be broken. I mean, how many people maybe were smokers, let's say, as a for instance, for years and years and years. A lot of people say that's the toughest thing they ever had to, overcome, and yet it can be overcome.
Yes. And recognize it, and then having a desire to change, having a desire and a belief that you can change.
Barbara DeAngelis says, marriage is not a noun. It's a verb.
Oh.
It isn't something that you get. It's something you do. It's the way you love your partner every day.
So are we only talking about marriage, or are we talking about committed relationships?
I'm talking about committed relationships.
Okay.
I'm using the term marriage very broadly. I would say creating relationships, creating marriage and relationships.
Okay.
I started thinking about this, and a lot of times I will talk to couples about the difference between having a reactive partnership, a reactive marriage, which is most times what comes into our counseling rooms, versus shifting to what I'm calling a creative marriage. And I've said, creative marriage is rare. In fact, what I'm calling a creative marriage or marriage, I think is rare. I think most times what people live out, because they're living it out reactively, are some form of an association as opposed to a true or a real marriage. What creating a marriage is a conscious, creative choice between two individuals who make a continuing commitment to a new creation. Not me, not you, but us. Just as you would not ignore your child. Creative couples engage each other continuously and commit to the ongoing process of creation as the relationship grows and evolves. Conscious choice, creating, and cleaning.
So they're committed. They're not. I have to trust that you're not going to bail if things get hard.
Yes.
That you're committed. That even if things get hard and things get crazy, you're in and I'm in and we're all in.
Exactly.
And bailing is off the table.
You know, and oftentimes I'll illustrate this, and I know this is an illustration that may make people go, "Ugh," but you would not think about bringing a child into the world and bringing it home and putting it in a room and just, you know, okay, you feed it and you keep it warm, but you give it nothing else. You just lock it away and really don't pay much attention to it. Think about this. Isn't that what we do in our relationships?
Sometimes.
Yeah. Oftentimes we get all excited at the beginning, but we don't pay attention to when we get married, when we make a lifetime commitment to someone, we're forming a new creation. We're forming a different entity that's not me and it's not you, it's us. And so it's a living, breathing, vital, separate entity from Carla or David. It's us. And if we don't pay any attention to the dynamics of it, again, with my illustration, if we bring a child home and we lock it away and we feed it and keep it warm or whatever, but we don't do anything to nurture it, what's that going to look like in 7 years, 10 years, 15 years?
Pretty dysfunctional.
When we let it out, you know. That's
Angry.
That's exactly what happens in a lot of our relationships. Talking creative marriage. Be right back.
Bright red Georgia clay, how it stuck to the tire. There she was, just a walking down the street singing. Snapping her fingers and shuffling her feet singing.
And welcome back. Welcome back into Strategies for Living here on 101.7 FM and 710 KEEL. Welcome back. PLPC Carla McCormick, marriage and family therapist David McMillan, talking about creating relationship today. And how do you do a creative relationship if you don't do that consciously? Making a conscious, creative, chosen, cognitive, and cleaning relationship.
I like the cleaning.
Yeah. Well, I think you have to have the cleaning. If you don't have the elements, there's several things, that I think, make up on an ongoing basis healthy relationships. And you can kind of chart these, if you will. But realistic expectations is certainly one of them. But respect, honesty, trust, autonomy, sharing power, time, tenderness, long-term commitment, and forgiveness. See, I think you can't, and I'm calling forgiveness cleaning.
Right.
And the reason I'm doing it, the illustration that I give to couples is if forgiveness is not a regular part of your relationship, you know what, when you go camping and maybe you can't get a bath or a shower every day, what's that feel like?
You get dirtier and dirtier and stinkier.
And it feels yuck. So imagine going, days and weeks without a bath or a shower. If we don't have forgiveness in our relationship, that's what happens. It accumulates. You just got cumulative stuff. It just builds up. And you need the power of that cleaning. You need the power of forgiveness.
So what do you do when one partner's willing to do the work and to do the cleaning and to do the stuff, but the other one is not ready yet?
Well,
Does that mean I just give up?
No, it doesn't. You understand basic math. 2 + 2 = 4. There's me, there's you, and there's us. Now, I think that comes with a warning, So 2 + 2 =
4.
Okay. So if you decide, okay, I'm not changing, not doing this, David, not doing it, I'm staying at 2, but I'm committed to change, and I become a 2.5. Now it's not 2 + 2 = 4. It's 2.5 + 2 =
4.5.
That changes things.
Gotcha.
Here's the warning, though. Here's the warning that we have to, and this is a warning. I mean, we can talk about this. Maybe we even do a show on this. Sometimes, that's sometimes why therapy can be detrimental to relationships. If one goes in and begins to change and the other doesn't get on board with it, that 4.5 feels different than 4 does. Does that make sense?
Yeah, well, and that happens when people get sober. It
Yep.
happens when people lose
Yep.
a whole lot of weight.
Absolutely.
Or it happens if one person gets a new great job. I mean,
When there's extreme change.
Yeah.
In a system. That system could be 2, it could be a family.
right.
But that's a great illustration. So that's a good question. A lot of times, people will just throw their hands up and say, I just have to give up. But they don't realize the basic math. 2 + 2 = 4.
Well, and I kind of always use the analogy of dancing, from kind of the whole dance of intimacy. If you and I dance, and we always do our dance this way.
Yeah, but you don't ever let me lead.
I know, because I'm bossy like that. And all of a sudden, if I change steps, in the beginning, you're going to step on my toes, but eventually you will change your steps too if we keep dancing long
Hopefully.
enough.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of how one person can change a relationship.
Absolutely. So, what you can really summarize what I'm saying in about 4 points.
Okay.
And we can expand on these. these are pretty basics. First and foremost, I have to realize that I live with another person. And that may sound so basic, but one of the hardest things to grasp is that our partner is not us. and that they don't think like us, they don't feel like us, and therefore, whenever we attribute motivations to their actions, we can be assured we're wrong.
So
We're making assumptions.
He's squeezing the toothpaste tube wrong just because he knows it pisses me off.
Exactly.
Can I say
There
that?
you go.
Uh-oh.
There you go. Yeah, you just did.
Uh-oh.
I paid off the FCC for this month. Already, so.
Thank you for paying that bill for us. So subjectivity by nature is non-transferable. That's why Don Miguel Ruiz, that
not about
agreement.
you.
Yeah, don't make assumptions.
Oh yeah, that one too.
Don't take anything personally. Don't make assumptions. Watch your words and always do your best. That's so basic.
That.
That's so basic. So you live with another person. That is so basic, and it's so hard to remember because, when we do come together, when we do form couple, it's like the two, we merge. The two become one. All of those things that we say, and the romanticism, that's wonderful. But we have to be conscious. We have to be very conscious that I'm living with another person who has a separate history, separate thoughts, separate feelings, and if I begin to make assumptions, I'm gonna screw up real bad.
And also, how many people, or how many people in relationships, the best part of them is given to the people they work with or the people they meet during the day, and not the people in their own home.
Yeah. Yeah.
How many times
I think it's easy to get there, Carla.
I'm kind and I'm funny and I'm generous with the people at work, and then
I don't have anything left. Yeah.
Well, or even that I'm crabby and mean at home.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I would hate to think that my kids don't know the same me as the people at work know me.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean,
and yet that's oftentimes what we find, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I would challenge you guys, if that is the case, pay attention.
Yeah.
And realize you can control that. You can be responsible for the energy you bring into your home. And that's a decision.
Yeah. Yeah. Another basic is make a decision, make a choice, end all negativity.
I guess that's kind of where I was going, huh?
Yeah, I think that's exactly. There's absolutely, in a loving relationship, there's absolutely no place for criticism, for sarcasm, for disdain. So contempt, criticism, defensiveness, stonewalling, those are, John Gottman calls those for the deadly horsemen of the apocalypse for marriages. And he claims, Dr. Gottman claims that he can watch a couple for 30 minutes, and what he's doing is he's assessing how much contempt, criticism, stonewalling, are going on, and blaming are going on, and if he finds two or more of those deadly horsemen, he says the incidence of divorce, the chance of divorce goes way up. If all four of the horsemen are riding, he said the incidence of divorce, he can predict divorce. 94% of the couples that show all four of them are not going, unless they become aware, unless there's some type of intervention done, that if you've got contempt, criticism, blaming, and stonewalling going on in a relationship, you've only got about a 6% chance of making it, according to Dr. Gottman.
You mean like the silent treatment?
Well, that's one way, but it could also be it could come in different flavors. So it could be it could be the silent treatment. It could also be that you continually introduce something that you want to talk about, and I take it. I just won't talk to you about it.
Right.
I might not give you the silent treatment, but I don't address. I put up a wall of sorts.
Right. That blank stare,
That
so to speak.
maybe the blank stare, or I just change the subject and I'm kind about it or nice about it, but I don't engage what you're wanting to engage or what you're putting on the table for us to talk about. So stonewalling can come in different flavors.
Okay.
Doesn't always have to be the negative, but stonewalling is essentially putting up a wall and saying, nope, we can't talk about that. We're not going to talk about that. I'm not going there with you.
No way, no how.
Yeah. So third is to enhance the positive. So good and warm and loving feelings are not just a given. They've got to be consciously constructed by your behavior, what you do. You might have kind, loving, warm thoughts and feelings, but just like in your illustration a moment ago, if I come home and my behavior is not that, then what are you going to think? What's the experience?
Don't Gottman, don't they have a stat about how many times, like good relationships, they touch each other, positively, or say something kind or compliment?
I
Isn't
think
there
they do.
like
I think
a stat about, like, he doesn't even look at how many times we fight. He looks at how many times we are kind and
Yes.
encouraging and loving, right?
Yes. So we've got to perform loving acts, and we need to dedicate ourselves to be relentless about doing that with exaggerated enthusiasm.
Well, I mean, I'm go back to, the way you treat your coworkers at work. If you are, oh, thanks, David, for taking care of that for me, but you don't thank your partner for picking up your dry cleaner, whatever the case may be.
Whatever. And so the fourth and final basic concept, I think, is become your partner's advocate. You live with another person, end all negativity, enhance the positive, and become your partner's advocate. You're your partner's champion and cheerleaders in all areas, in every area. So don't speak ill, never speak ill, or take another side. Support even their mistakes.
We have a rule in our house that you can call me out in private, but in public you always have to get my back.
Absolutely, because that's what we do.
Right.
That's what we do. So just basics of a creative relationship. When we come back, let's talk about some basic stumbling blocks for couples. Where do we step in it? and let's talk about some top 10 strengths for happy couples, because they look different.
Yeah.
They look very different, and it kind of gives us a clue as to what we need to create as we consciously choose our cognitions and being creative and cleaning in relationships.
I like it.
All right, we'll be back. Strategies, talking, creating healthy relationships and healthy marriage.
I've heard people say that too much of anything is not good for you, baby. But I don't know about that.
I don't either.
As many times that we've loved and we've shared love and made love,
Oh, yeah.
it doesn't seem to me like it's enough.
I think I might need to dump out of it. I'm going to go ahead and dump out of it.
Thank you.
He's not letting you guys take away all my fun.
We're actually saving you from yourself.
Welcome back into Strategies for Living. What are you guys saying? 1017 FM, 710 KEEL. Marriage and family therapist David McMillan and PLPC Carla McCormick and Reuben Wright saving me from myself again.
Everybody likes Barry White, but you really like Barry White.
Well, you know, I can just, I'm channeling my inner Barry. What do I say, you know? So we're talking about creating marriage today. And let's talk about what are the top stumbling blocks for couples? And I got to find out where I got this. I don't know where I came up with this. So we could be, you know, I don't know. But it's good stuff. So I'll have to find out where this came from. But here are what couples, this was a surveying of couples, and I don't think it's the Gottmans. It could be, though. Where are the biggest problems? We have problems sharing leadership equally. That was the top one.
By a lot.
By a lot. 93% of couples that were reported having problems, that was number one. We have problems sharing leadership equally. Followed closely by, my partner is sometimes too stubborn.
Those kind of go hand in hand, though, don't they?
I think so, yeah. Number three, having children reduces our marital satisfaction.
You know, I always giggle when people say they're going to have kids to try to save their marriage.
Yeah,
because
it doesn't
having
work.
kids is so stressful.
Yeah. Followed by, my partner is too negative or critical. Number five, I wish my partner had more time and energy for recreation with me. Number six, I wish my partner were more willing to share feelings. Number seven, I always end up feeling responsible for the problem. Number eight, I go out of my way to avoid conflict with my partner. And number nine, we have difficulty completing tasks or projects together. And number 10, our differences never seem to get resolved. Now, those are the top 10 stumbling blocks. And I looked at them, and again, I don't know where I referenced this. I'll have to find out. But they make 20 some odd years in the therapy room with couples. I agree wholeheartedly with this list of 10. These are the biggies.
So which one is the most critical, do you think, or the top two?
I would say just like they're reported, shared autonomy. A relationship is not a losing of one or the other. It's a conscious choice and a decision to share. So that number one, we have problems sharing leadership equally. If a couple checks that, if they report that, I want to talk about that a lot with them.
So I don't have to quit being me to be in a relationship with you.
In fact, it's detrimental if you do. Oftentimes that dooms the relationship from the beginning. We merge and one has to give up or feels like they give up themselves to be in the relationship. And that's a relationship doomed to failure.
So if I'm loud and boisterous and funny and that person at the party, but now in my relationship I have to be quiet and demure and something else, and I can't be myself. I always think about that.
Yeah.
If you know somebody who is different when they're apart from their partner than they are with their partner,
yes,
that's kind of like one of those.
That's a problem.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now let's contrast this. Let's contrast those things, those top 10 stumbling blocks. Let's contrast that to the top 10 strengths of happy couples.
Okay.
So, number one, I'm satisfied with how we talk to each other. We're creative. Number two, we're creative in how we handle our differences. Number three, we feel very close to each other. Number four, my partner is seldom too controlling. Number five, when discussing problems, my partner understands my opinions and my ideas. Number six, I'm completely satisfied with the amount of affection from my partner. Number seven, we have a good balance of leisure time spent together and separately. Number eight, my partner's friends or family rarely interfere in our relationship. Number nine, we agree on how to spend money. And last but not least, I'm satisfied with how we express spiritual values and beliefs. So those are the top 10 reported strengths of happy couples. So when you put these lists together, they really give you a roadmap, don't they?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, and you can see how all, this goes back to all the things that we talked about in the beginning.
So you again, it's we're creating this. It's a conscious, creative choice. We're doing that through our thought process, our cognitions, and we're constantly cleaning because we're not going to be perfect on any of these. So again, there's where the cleaning comes in. There's where the forgiveness comes in. And I'm saying, just like you would bathe or shower daily, at least, sometimes we do that more than once a day. That's probably a good thing. That's what we've got to do with forgiveness in our relationships too.
So basically, one of the tools we use is having a kind of a statute of limitations. If I did something to upset you, and you don't say something to me within 1 week, then it's dead.
I like that.
You can't bring it back up.
Yeah.
It's either we talk about it that week or it's done.
What a great guideline to have in a relationship.
Well, because who wants to get beat up by something they did 6 months ago?
Well, you'd be surprised at how many couples beat each other up by things that happened 10,
last Christmas,
10, 15 years ago.
Right.
20 years ago, whatever. Tough stuff. Talking about creating relationships, creating marriage today on Strategies.
I look at you and see the passion
love it. I saw Percy Sledge.
Did you?
Yeah, yeah. And in fact, he brought out Mama Sledge at the end of the show. And I think he came here. How many years ago was that? Maybe 19. Oh gosh.
Where did he play?
He played. Where did he play? Down on the riverfront, I think. It must have been early 2000s, because Mr. Sledge is now passed on to the great beyond. But I've always loved when a man loves a woman and take time to know her. 2 Percy Sledge hits that I always
Take
loved.
Time to Know Her is definitely fantastic.
Anyway, we're creating. We digress.
That's okay.
We're creating marriage today, and to kind of sum up, I think we're building. It's like building a house, and if you build a house, you're going to first and foremost want that house. You're going to want to put a firm foundation down. But what do you do before you put a firm foundation down? You get solid ground. Well, what's solid ground in a relationship? It's the self. It's knowing self, and having self relationship and friendship. That's the creating me stuff.
Yes.
Yeah.
I love that. So before I can even have a floor in my marriage
Before
house,
you put the foundation down, you got to make sure you got
you
good
gotta have
ground.
some solid ground.
You got to get good ground. So love your neighbor as you love yourself. Yeah. So then the foundation that you lay, and the main walls that you put down, but the foundation is one of, I call it safety, but it's commitment and trust is what you're building, and the solid walls that you're building on are intimacy and passion. Robert Sternberg gave us these many years ago. He didn't say them like this. I've kind of rearranged them a bit. And I'm aware that intimacy and passion, many people, confuse those with sex. And I think good sexuality flows out of intimacy, into me see, and passion. Passion is, I want to be. It's the energy of a relationship. I want to be in this relationship with you. But you don't sustain those two, intimacy and passion, without a foundation of safety.
Well, and I'm going to tell you that I think that nothing can happen without safety. And by safety, I mean I've got to know that I trust you no matter what, not to use the things I tell you or the things I do to hurt me, against me.
I agree with you, but I think something can happen. I think that's what falling in love, we don't need that safety. There's I like the way Peck says it, a collapsing of the ego boundaries. We meld together. We don't necessarily have that commitment level, that trust, that safety built up to experience passion and intimacy. And I think that's where a lot of us may go wrong, because we fall in love and we have that in-love experience for months, maybe even years, and then it goes away. And we don't understand why.
So we have the passion and the intimacy, and
we can't sustain it because we don't have the safety and the trust foundation built.
Because I'm afraid to tell you this, because if you knew this about me in my past, you might not love me as much.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. And then we go about building a house. We share each other's world. It's built on a marital friendship. It's sharing a fondness and an admiration system. It's making decisions to turn towards each other, then away from each other, choosing a positive perspective, managing conflict on an ongoing basis, making each other's dreams come true, and essentially sharing meaning and creating a mini culture. That's building a strong marital house. And that's our job. That's,
So great marriages are made. They don't just happen.
Amen. Amen. Folks, thank you. Thank you for tuning in to Strategies for Living. We have been brought to you by KEEL, the Council on Alcoholism and Drug Abuse of Northwest Louisiana. Also brought to you by Jerry Anderson State Farm, by Learning RX, by Highland Place Rehab and Nursing Center, by Jacobs Well, Inspirational Books and Gifts, and by Resilient House. If today were the last day of your life, you only had one more phone call to make, who would you call? What would you say? And why are you waiting? Make the call. For Reuben Wright, for PLPC Carla McCormick, I'm marriage and family therapist David McMillan. See you next time on Strategies for Living.
And 710 KEEL, Shreveport.
Rallying Republicans. I'm Lisa Lacera, Fox News.